So if you haven't watched my last video, you can see me making this beautiful spring coat. I have some extra fabric left over that I think would make the perfect combination coat and shorts. It might not make sense me saying it, but this is the picture that I have in mind. And I'm so focused in on using this extra fabric to make this that I just have to do it at this point. If you haven't checked out my previous video, the video is on me making this spring coat that is fully reversible. It was quite the challenge, but I absolutely loved how this turned out. So go check out that video before you watch this one. But if you are here just for this video, hello, welcome. I think I need to use this in a way that it would complete the set, we'll say. I have a pair of shorts that I really like the fit of. I'm going to make a pattern based off of these shorts, and then we are going to make a new pair of shorts out of this. Because the coat is reversible, I want the shorts to look good if they are worn with either side of the coat. And for some reason, I have in my head the look of two different side shorts, which is something that is very, very outside of my wardrobe. I think the irony is that as I was making the coat, the weather was so nice and sunny that like you almost didn't need a coat to go outside. And then as I finished it, it was like the perfect weather. It was snowing yesterday. It's super cold. And I'm gonna make a pair of shorts to go with it, so. First things first, we have to make a pattern. I'm going to use these hand-me-down shorts that my sister had given me. Thank you, sister. They're from Abercrombie & Fitch. I think that these are just like a cotton something short. Not too stretchy either way, but they are a little bit looser and flowier than the other material that I'm going to use. I have to keep that in mind, but these are not supposed to be skin tight. So the first step is just transferring the shorts onto paper. I lay it out flat and mark where all the seams, darts, pleats, and pockets are. I love using this craft paper from IKEA, but in the past I've used newspaper, even though it was a little overstimulating to try and see the lines that I would draw over top of all the grocery adverts and sales items, but we do with what we have. I'm making these pocket pattern pieces roughly based on the original shorts, but just freehanding the pocket size to fit my hands comfortably. I'll also be using this pocket piece to create both sides of the pocket, even though one will attach to the front of the shorts and the other will attach to the side seam, meaning that the front pocket will have the same angle cut into the side to show the base pocket underneath. Just roughly drafting a waistband since I know I can make it fit my waist after I complete the shorts. Because I wasn't set on the design when I started drafting my pattern, I took some time to draw up some sketches of different colorways. A big thank you to everyone on my Instagram and YouTube polls that helped me make decisions when I can't pick. I've decided to go with option C, although I think I made a mistake and made option B, but they're very similar, so I think we'll all be happy with the result. Now we get into the beautiful soundscapes of all the fabric cutting, so I'll just let it speak for itself. These pieces will attach on top of the base pocket pieces so that we will only see the exterior fabric. I duplicate all the same cuts onto my other fabric and then cut my pocket pieces onto some thrifted pillowcases. This pocket piece that's cut right here is going to be attached to the short so that we can see this fabric underneath. Next, I'm just making a reinforced waistband insert, which is just another piece of canvas with fusible interfacing. This will help with keeping the waistband from stretching out. I'm serging all of the raw edges of the pieces I cut before I attach them all together. I'm attaching the canvas pieces onto the pocket bases with a straight stitch, remembering to have these colors contrast the sides of the shorts that they will be going onto. That was probably the hardest part of this whole project. Now I'm facing good sides together as I add on the smaller pocket pieces that have the same angle cut off to show the base pocket. I'm sewing everything with a 1/2 inch seam allowance. Then I understitch the seam allowance to the pocket lining and then do a top stitch from the outside. As you can see, I have cream thread in my needle and green in my bobbin so that I don't have to switch threads so often. I can just sew from the underside or the top depending on what thread I need to match. Now I'm connecting the pockets by sewing around the edges, and now you can see the purpose of the canvas piece onto the pocket. It just makes it look so nice. Using the notches I left in my pattern to determine the placement and width of the front pleat, I fold it over and sew it down. I'm marking about 2 inches from my seam allowance to make the pleats. Here I'm just pinning the pocket to the front of the shorts and folding the pleat towards the center seam to keep everything in place, and then tack it down with my sewing machine. Next I'm attaching the zipper, and I'm using some roughly drafted plackets to make the fly. Take the curved one with the longer edge and sew it onto the crotch seam of my front left short panel and add a top stitch. I got really lucky one day thrifting and found a bag of metal zippers, which are fantastic to use on shorts and pants. Right side facing the placket, I'm sewing one side down with my zipper foot. I mark where the zipper meets the top edge of the front short panel before I sew it onto the under placket, so that the zipper teeth don't touch your skin or clothing. I use my hands to crease a 1/4 inch seam allowance towards the wrong side so that I can top stitch this panel onto the zipper and under placket. The trick is pinning it in place and then gradually fading out the crease back into a flat edge for when we connect both the front panels. I show it here, but during the entirety of the zipper placket process, please watch out. You don't want to sew over the pockets or something that you don't want to. Please, I speak from experience that we will definitely see later. I used to hate zippers, and I still kind of hate invisible zippers, but I love me a good metal zipper. I fold the front fly over the zipper before I sew the bottom curve of the front panels together. I sew from about a 1/2 inch below the bottom of the zipper teeth, then follow the curve all the way down. So far so good. Now we're going to sew the front of the shorts onto the folded curve placket that we first added to make the iconic curve stitching that we see on all zipper flies. This step I had to do a few times because I tried to sew it onto the wrong side to match my thread, but I sewed too far over, and then the next time I tried using the green thread through the needle and sewed down the under placket by mistake. But luckily on the 3rd try I got it right. I went back over the bottom of the curve to connect the under placket just right below the zipper teeth. Now the front of the shorts are done, so proud and happy to move on to the back panels, which are way easier. All we have to do is add a dart to the back, which I sew down and iron to make a really smooth transition from the waist to hip. Next step, we sew the back panels down the back seam to connect them. I also cut notches into the seam around the bottom curve to add a top stitch. Not sure why, but it just felt right. It's time to connect the front to the back. Nice and easy, just pinning the side seams together and also matching up the center crotch seams and pinning down the leg. Then it was time to take it to my sewing machine and create a pair of shorts. As you can tell, I'm pretty happy with how these are turning out, but there is still progress to be made. I'm taking some leftover fabric and cutting out 1-inch strips. I did 3 strips in green and 2 in cream to make belt loops. You'll probably want them to measure around 3.5 inches in length. I will tell you here that serging this material together was the wrong choice. Either do a bias tape fold, or if you turn it inside out like me, please, for the love of God, do a straight stitch and then cut down the seam allowance, so you won't torture your hands like me trying to turn a canvas tube inside out. Somehow we got it done, but I'm ironing the tubes flat before I go over them with my sewing machine with 2 lines of stitching. I'm referencing the belt loop placement on the original shorts and pinning the belt loops good side down to the shorts before I sew them on. I did make a small error here and pin the wrong belt loop colors to the back of the shorts. It's just a minor thing, but if it matters to you, then you just have to pay attention to what color waistband each belt loop attaches to. Speaking of waistband, it's time to fry my brain figuring out what color belongs to what side and what edge I should attach the reinforced waistband insert into. With my hindsight, I know that I attached the matching color to the front of the shorts so that it is opposite at the back. Also, I will attach the reinforced waistband to the side that will be on the outer layer of the waistband, meaning I will stitch together with a straight stitch and serge the edge of the fabric on the other edge. With all that confusion dealt with and fixed, I can line up the waistband seam to the back seam of the shorts and pin it all the way to the front on both sides and then sew it all together. Please watch out as you sew over any zipper teeth as to not break your needle. I fold the seam up with the waistband and then fold the waistband inside out and onto itself, leaving the serged edge lower than the waist seam. I pin the seam allowance up and sew from the zipper fly to make a 90-degree angle. I clip the excess fabric, leaving a 1/2 inch seam allowance, and turn the waistband right side out. I pin down the rest of the waistband, making sure the serged edge is lower than the waist seam, and then use matching colored thread to stitch in the ditch along the waist seam, tacking down the waistband. Now to finish the belt loops and the waistband, I sew the belt loops down a 1/4 inch from the waistband. I wanted the waistband to be fully attached to the reinforced waistband we made, so I did a few rows of top stitching, matching the thread to the fabric. Folded the belt loops up and under to sew them down, and trimmed off any extra loop that was in the way. Because I have really bad luck with buttonholes, I practice on equally thick fabric and mark where the buttonholes should start based off of how big the buttonhole was that I practiced on. I'm running low on green thread here, but I'm doing some final stitching to the pocket openings to reinforce them. Then I open the buttonhole with my seam ripper, which is equally scary and satisfying. I learned my lesson while making the coat to go slow and gentle, since I ripped right through the buttonhole and had to do emergency surgery on the fabric. I mark with a pencil where the button should go, and because I'm being extra with these shorts, I'm adding an anchor button to the back. Just a smaller button to stitch through the same time so that the stitches pull on the small button instead of the fabric, which can rip a hole after a long time use. Last thing, along with dealing with all those loose threads that drive me crazy, we hem the shorts. I use the last bit of matching green thread, and then we can call these shorts complete. I'm so happy with how these turned out. I think that they're just so fun. Definitely different from everything else I have in my wardrobe. These are very eye-catching. A lot of the shorts that I have are just very plain and basic, so it's nice to have a little variety in here. The one thing that I do wish that I had paid a little bit more attention to was these belt loops at the back. These two on the sides are not exactly what I would have wanted in retrospect, but I think that they look alright just because they are mirrored on each side. But I initially just wanted them to be matching to the waistband, so that's my bad. But I still think that they look pretty good regardless. The fabric of these shorts are really structured. They're a cotton canvas, so they do hold shape really nicely. It's just so nice to sew with. Now that that project is done, I'm going to shift my focus onto my sewing room. I have had the walls painted this white primer on 3 of my walls. I've only made adjustments to this back wall, so I think that it's time for me to do like a refresh in here. I think that white walls are nice for like a blank canvas, but I think that it is time for it to have a little bit more personality. I've been putzing a lot, trying to put things into the right places before I put holes in the walls and start painting. So now that everything is in its place, I'm going to do something that probably should have been done before I did all this and paint. Now, I know not a lot of people like painting. I absolutely love it. So that is something I am really looking forward to. So stay tuned for my next video when I'm going to tackle this room, as well as subscribing, following me on Instagram and TikTok for all of the updates on this room. I have a lot of little projects that I want to get done, so stay tuned for that. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, I hope you have a wonderful day. Bye.